Have you ever walked out of a meeting thinking, didn't we already discuss that? You explained the priority, you followed up, you reminded everyone again. Nothing changed. Deadlines slip, priorities clash. People still seem confused. You start wondering, is this a communication problem or a competence problem? But here is the truth most leaders never hear. If you constantly have to repeat yourself, the issue usually isn't memory, it is alignment. People don't consistently execute what they hear, they execute what the environment reinforces. That is what they execute. And once you understand this, you will stop viewing execution breakdowns the same way again. Today, we are going to explore why smart teams miss obvious instructions, why repeating yourself can actually weaken leadership, and the hidden alignment problem that creates organizational friction. Most organizations don't suffer from a communication problem. They suffer from a translation problem. Leaders assume if I said it clearly, people should understand it. But organizations are driven by interpretation. An interpretation is shaped by the following: incentives, priorities, departmental pressures, past experiences, organizational culture, competing definitions of success. Two people can hear the same instruction and produce completely different outcomes. You say, let's give priority to quality. One manager slows production to improve standards. Another speeds things up because they believe delivery matters most. Same message, different interpretation, different results. That is why repeating yourself becomes exhausting. You are not necessarily dealing with resistance. You are dealing with misaligned mental models. Think about Captain America in the movie Civil War. Iron Man and Captain America both wanted to protect people. Same mission, different beliefs, different interpretations. Conflict was inevitable. The same thing happens inside organizations. People may want organizational success, but if they define success differently, execution breaks down. If they interpret success differently, execution is definitely bound to break down. Most leaders assume reputation improves communication. Not always. Sometimes it weakens accountability. And here is why. People adopt to the systems around them. If employees know leadership will always repeat instructions, ownership decreases, responsibility decreases. The organization slowly develops what I call leadership dependency. Nothing moves unless the leader pushes. Nothing advances unless the leader reminds. Nothing gets completed without follow-up. At that point, leadership is no longer creating alignment. Leadership is no longer creating alignment. It is creating pressure. And pressure-driven organizations eventually exhaust their leaders. Many leaders feel overwhelmed, not because their teams lack talent, but because they have become the organization's central nervous system. Every reminder, every clarification, everything literally flows through them. That is scalable leadership. That is not scalable leadership. It is organizational dependency. Repeating yourself comes with a cost. It comes with a cost most organizations never measure. It assumes, first of all, it consumes leadership attention. Every time leaders re-explain priorities, correct misunderstandings, or revisit the same issues, strategic thinking gets replaced by operational firefighting. Imagine driving a car while correcting the steering wheel every few seconds. You still move forward, but the journey becomes exhausting. That is exactly what happens in misaligned organizations. Leaders spend more time correcting than creating. And there's another danger. When everything gets repeated, people stop distinguishing between critical priorities, routine reminders, strategic direction, leadership, frustration. Everything blends together. The message loses impact. Communication becomes organizational wallpaper. People hear it, but they stop processing it. That is why motivation alone isn't enough. Motivation creates temporary energy. It hypes people. It inspires temporarily. But alignment creates sustainable execution. Alignment creates sustainable execution. Organizations don't execute based on announcements. They execute based on alignment. The real question is, do people think about priorities the same way? Do they? Do they define success consistently? Do they understand trade-offs similarly? Do they know what matters most under pressure? Because pressure reveals alignment, not meetings, not presentations, not strategy documents. When deadlines collide and resources become limited, people revert to their true priorities. And if those priorities differ across departments, execution fractures. One department optimizes for speed, another for quality, another for innovation, another for compliance. None of those goals are wrong. But without alignment, they compete against one another. This is one of the central principles of the organizational cognitive alignment model. Execution problems are often thinking problems because they become performance problems. Communication alone cannot solve structural misalignment. It cannot. Organizations must align how people interpret priorities. The solution isn't talking more. No. The solution is building systems that reinforce clarity. 1. Clarify non-negotiable priorities. Most organizations have too many priorities, which means they have none. Strong leaders continually answer what matters most right now, and they define it clearly, not in motivational language, in operational language, specific, observable, measurable. Number 2, align incentives with expectations. Align incentives with expectations. You cannot say collaboration matters while rewarding competition. You cannot say quality matters while rewarding speed alone. You cannot demand accountability while tolerating chronic underperformance. Organizations move toward what they reward, not what they announce. Not what they announce. The real culture is revealed by system, not the slogan. Number 3, reduce competing signals. Mixed messages create confusion. For example, message would say, take ownership. Take ownership, but require approval for every decision. Another one, be innovative, but punish mistakes. Collaborate, while departments compete for resources. People don't follow slogans. They follow patterns. Patterns reveal the true organizational message. Number 4, create feedback loops. One of the biggest leadership mistakes is assuming communication equals understanding. It doesn't. Great leaders verify interpretation. They ask, how does your team understand this priority? How does your team understand this priority? That simple question exposes alignment gaps because they become costly execution failures. Along the way, they become costly execution failures. At some point, every leader must move from asking, why aren't people listening? To, what system keeps producing this misunderstanding? That shift changes everything. Immature leadership personalizes problems. Mature leadership diagnoses systems. Instead of saying, my team doesn't care, ask, what competing pressures are shaping their behavior? Instead of saying, I've already explained this, ask, what reinforcement mechanism is missing? Leadership becomes more effective when it focuses less on blame and more on alignment. If you constantly find yourself repeating the same instructions, don't immediately assume people are careless. Look deeper. Ask, what assumptions are different? What incentives are competing? What priorities are unclear? What signals are contradictory? What interpretations are fragmented? Because leadership is not simply about communicating clearly. It's about creating an environment where people constantly and consistently interpret reality the same way. That is alignment. And alignment is what transforms communication into execution. Remember, The organization only moves when you repeat yourself, then the priority has not yet been embedded into the system. The goal is not to become a louder leader. The goal is to build an organization that thinks clearly together. That is where sustainable execution begins. If you've ever found yourself repeating the same instruction over and over, comment here below with the words, what is the one thing you keep repeating in your organization? Because chances are you're not dealing with a communication problem. You're not dealing with a communication problem. You are dealing with an alignment problem.